Okay, the usual two red dots, dot in each window. We are recording. Today's guest is Jay Patel. He is a friend of a friend. I just barely met last week. Um, a friend of mine had sent me a message about some amazing healing uh, experience he had with Jay that was kind of spontaneous. He suggested I have Jay on. I've spoken with Jay since, and was a great suggestion. Because just a little bit I've heard from Jay and a little bit we've spoken, this is going to be a great one. So, Jay, instead of me doing the bio, will you please let the world know who you are, where you're from, and whatever else you want to know?
Yeah, absolutely, Charlie. Well, firstly, thank you for inviting me on.
Mhm.
It's a pleasure to be here and also to get to know you as well. So, yeah, my name is Jay Patel. I'm from Leicester, so that I'm roughly 100 miles north of London. Um, I was born in the UK, so lived in Leicester all of my life. And then I guess the rest I will kind of unpack with you as you go. In terms of my job and stuff, I work in marketing day to day, but prior to that, as you'll kind of find out as we go, I was in ministry as well. So that's kind of my background in terms of my work and things like that.
Okay, well, since it's this type of podcast, let's go into the ministry. When did that start?
So I'll kind of give you let me kind of go back to say when I was like 19, around 19 years of age. Now, actually, let me start before I was born. So one of the things that my doctors termed me was a miracle child because um, technically I was never supposed to have been born. So my mum was told after she had my brother, who's 12 years older than me, and we're exceptionally close. But she was told you won't be able to have any more children. Um, my mum then met somebody, I can't remember exactly kind of the years, but she met somebody who was a Christian person who gave her a picture of Yeshua, or Jesus as some people call him, and just to like hold this picture, like hold on to this because you will conceive a child. And so my mum like held on to this picture, and sure as she fell pregnant with me, very kind of unexpected, as she was told she couldn't have any children. So, kind of fast forward, she continued on in Hindu roots, and I was raised up as a Hindu. So, kind of fast forwarding to say 19 years old, um, she'd become a Christian by this point. Like, something had drawn, well, it's not something rather, but like, God, as I call him, God, other people have different names of divine, higher power, whatever people choose. Um, she'd become a Christian, and she'd been basically really like trying to get me to go along to some of her meetings and things like that. I was just really hesitant, and I was a student. I was at university. It wasn't something that was on my priority list. Um, anyway, I went along one day to one of these meetings, and a guy said to me, and there was no pressure, but a guy said to me, "Do you want to feel the power of God go through your body?" And I was like, I mean, that's an interesting thing to ask, and it's a big thing to even suggest. So you've got to be able to back something like that up. So he didn't lay any hands on me, like people sometimes do the laying of hands. He just put his hands above mine, and maybe like a minute or so later, I felt this electric, beautiful energy go through my body, and I left that house not knowing anything else about what that was. When I woke up a few days later, just everything felt different inside. Like it was like my life had turned around. So I made kind of a decision at that point to that I was going to become a Christian. So at 19 years of age, I converted to Christianity, and that was kind of well received. My family were pretty amazing like that. It was my mum was already a Christian, and so there was no issues there. And so that kind of led me on to my journey into ministry. So what I found was that I had one of the things that really lights me up, and it's different now, which we'll obviously tap into later. One of the things that really lit me up was seeing people's life just transformed, whether that's physical healing or whether that's them encountering the divine in a way that they wanted to experience him. So I started to travel the world, like America, Cuba, and different places, meant like basically just ministering to people, and we would just walk the streets and pray for, just ask people if we could pray for them, and there'd be no agenda in terms of, that we didn't want anything from them. These trips were paid for by us, like me and my best friend Joe, who he's just he's absolute family. To me, he would come along with me on these trips, and we would just go out and like pray for people. We would see physical healings, like people not needing. Like we met a guy in Virginia once who couldn't walk without a Zimmer frame. Well, he left walking up the street with his hands in the air, like in shock of what had happened. And I basically also took on a role later on within the church. I'm no longer part of that. Again, something to touch on after. But I took on a job in the church as somebody who was literally paid to just go out and minister to people. So that's what I would do, literally pray and see people healed of all sorts of things. Phenomenal time was in Cuba. We went to pray for somebody, and whilst we were praying for them, my tour guide was like, I need some prayer. And her bones were quite like misaligned, just I guess just from posture. I think that's all it was. It was not because of any accidents, I don't believe, but it was just posture related. And I saw her bones realign into position. So that's kind of my background ministry. It was a lot to do with the focus of desiring people to experience God, but also at the time I used to focus a lot on physical healing. So I hope that answers the question.
Sorry about that. I had to come off mute.
Not at all.
We're just going to dive right in. What is happening when you are praying for someone and you are physically watching their bones realign, or the guy in Virginia gets out of his wheelchair and he's got his hands? Because we've all seen the TV shows where this happens,
Sure.
or the fraudulent stuff where it's
Yeah.
bullshit. The person can't actually walk. And so for every one of those, I understand very well that the 99% who are frauds, the 1%, don't negate the 1%, such as what you're talking about. What is
So,
happening in that moment to make that human being spend their entire lives in a wheelchair and then get up and walk?
well, that's it. There's a kind of a twofold question to that. So, in terms of like, say, I'll go for when I've prayed for somebody and they've got healed. So, some people, and I wouldn't necessarily even describe myself as a Christian now, but that's a topic for afterwards. But some people would say that was God healing them as we prayed. Some people would say it's your energetic frequency healing that person as you attach an intention to it, because the mind is so powerful. And I believe it's a mixture of both, a combination of both. It's the heart of God to heal, but also the fact that when we understand how powerful we are and how powerful our minds were, because we were created to be powerful, something happens, and people inevitably are able to walk again without crutches or a wheelchair. Now, the interesting thing that I found, which is what I'm probably the most of what I'm guessing we'll talk about, is that you can pray for physical healing for people, but if there is an underlying inner trauma that you haven't dealt with, then all you're doing is tackling something physical, which can later then come back. So it could well be that somebody walks away on a TV show for a moment and they're pain free. They don't have any pain in their body, but then later it comes to a point where actually now you're feeling all of that pain come back. And being completely honest, I've had this. So I prayed for somebody once and they seemed to be like just amazed at how much better they felt. Well, that evening the pain came straight back. And I guess that for me, that's a big key to why I started walking what I did next, which was dealing with the inside stuff, because I spent years dealing with the outside. So I kind of hope that that kind of answers the. That's my understanding of it.
Okay, so you went from physical to emotional, to you went from the
Yeah,
outer to the inner.
which was the
Um,
best journey of my. That was the best thing of my life.
and that's everyone's story, right? They always go inward. So and the inward, the emotional, always seems to manifest in the physical. So like you said, you're getting to the root of the issue. You're not clipping off a leaf of a tree and having it grow back.
And I mean, it was. If you'd like me to talk a bit about that
Please.
process,
Yeah.
that wasn't a straightforward thing. So re- rewind back, like say, I think it's 8 years or so. I meet Hannah, who is now my wife, and honestly, there was something so special about her. And what it was for me was this union that she had with God, or some people say divine, however, but I call him Yeshua, which Jesus, like um, as how Christians would say. But my wife is just so exceptionally, like, there was this unity that she walked in. So I was like, I really want that. Like, this is just amazing, because you have these Christians that are like that spend 30 minutes of praying, or some people sit there and do their shopping list request to God. Please God do this, please God do that, please God do the other. And Hannah was just like, oh, it was just like this union, this flow. And apart from the fact that she's physically beautiful, there's this inside like energy that she has that I can't describe. So she's a doctor and an author, so she's got like the medical mind of things, but there is this spiritual component. And so what she honed in on was very much the inner healing, like the inner process. So she's seen physical healings, but she's very much into inner healings. And one thing I want to say just before I continue is, often people ask for an answer from God. Like, they pray and they look for an answer. And sometimes your answer comes in the most unexpected way, because she was literally the answer to everything that I'd been asking for. So everything came into my life good after she did. I didn't know that at the time, and I didn't know how things were going to progress. But anyway, so as time goes on, so I've been married to Hannah for 1 year now. But say a few years ago, like, Hannah had already been like really teaching me about inner healing and the need to heal your heart, heal wounds and all that kind of stuff. But a few years ago, she started to do kinesiology, depending on how some people say it, and doing trauma release. And as she did it, she's one of my heroes, spiritual heroes in life. So when she does it, I tend to follow. And she did it, and she was like, "This is phenomenal." So I was like, okay, I need to give this a go. And so 3 years ago, I started embarking on this journey as well of inner healing. So we had to see a kinesiologist, and she is just phenomenal. She does a remote session, um, removing energy blocks. So kind of, it was a process where I moved out of the church system, which is probably what I may speak about with you next, as it bridges the gap, and really understanding that it's awesome when we see physical stuff happen, but I really want to see people's hearts get better. And that's the thing I wasn't seeing before. And so my wife literally was the joining point where I knew, okay, trauma release, releasing the blocks, the energetic blocks in the mind that hold us back. Those are the things that we have to tackle if we truly ever want to get better, or we're going to end up with one condition going and another one coming. Um, so I when I first kind of was close with Hannah, she introduced me to somebody who's a dear friend now. But at the time, I didn't know I didn't know who they were, but I trusted Hannah, so I went to this conference, and he's a dear friend of mine called Justin Abraham, or Justin Paul Abraham, and he really helped me to see that so much of what was taught in the churches, what is taught in the Bible by the churches, so much of it's taught completely wrong. The mystical union, the mysticism has been taken out, stripped out, and what you're left with is so much religious junk. So myself, Hannah, and my best friend Joe, who I mentioned, we kind of stepped out of the church. We wanted to leave religion behind, just completely burn it out of our lives, and we embarked on a mystical journey, which really involved healing our hearts, and that's been a journey, going inwards. So Justin really talks about meditation, which was super helpful, and really focusing on the we believe in moving in and out of dimensions of heaven, because Christians believe you wait until you die to go to heaven. I believe that that's completely false, and you can go into heaven now because we're multi-dimensional beings. So that was kind of all of this was the point where I transitioned out of, I left one religion, Hinduism, for another religion, Christianity. And then but I had to do that in order to come out of everything, go to no religion and go, it's just me, my relationship with God, my relationship, with the people around me, and that's it. Everything had to die. So that was kind of my transition process out and into the internal. The reason I mention all of that is they were all the key elements to me being able to do that. Like Justin teaching us the mystical ways of God, and my wife had already been listening to him, and understanding who he really is, and the friendliness and the personality of God. All those things helped me to move forward. So sorry if that was a longer way around, but that's kind of my journey.
No, this is exactly what we want, right? This is a open-ended conversation and an open-ended
Sure.
time frame. So as you see me look down, I'm kind of writing myself questions as I listen to the guests. So
Yeah, sure.
just briefly, kinesiology. Give me a description of that for the listeners.
Yeah, sure. So, well, I mean, the best way is that if I can tell you what happens.
Okay.
So, the kinesiologist will energy test your subconscious, basically, to see if you have a particular trauma that your body is ready to release. Now, you could target a specific area. For example, it could be finance, it could be, relationship with mom, dad, whatever it is, or it could be just that she energy tests your body for generic blocks that you're ready to release. And so as she does that, as my kinesiologist does that, what she will do is she will basically have you, and you can use a magnet, because that seems to be a way that you can feel exactly what she's doing remotely. On the other side, you can have a magnet, which basically you basically trace over your governing meridians like 10 times. As you do that, you're rewriting the neural pathways in your mind that once maybe told you I'm unloved, or I'm abandoned, or I'm, whatever it is, the lie in your head. You're rewriting it with a truth. So in a nutshell, that's what it is: rewriting your neural pathways with the truth about a situation, and releasing the lie.
Okay. Beautiful. Yeah, just wanted a short description there for people who
Yeah,
may not
sure.
have heard of kinesiology. Um,
Me neither, by the way. Before my wife did this session, I hadn't heard of it. I've been doing it for a few years now. But yeah, she did it, so I was like, okay, you've done it. I trust you. I'm going to do it. But yeah, I've been doing it for a few years, and it's been immense.
most, like a good friend of mine, his significant other was just diagnosed with a brain tumor.
Yeah.
And I started talking to him about healings, about people like you that I have on. And I was saying, could I send you some people? Would your significant other be open to listening, or to, it's kind of like it's almost always a last ditch effort after the physical modalities have not worked. And he's like, probably not.
Mhm.
Probably not. And I was like, just would you listen to him? Would you check him out just to see if you could talk her into it? Well, they're both doctors. So my question always comes up for Hannah. How does a doctor who is medically trained in that world wrap their mind around this healings without the physical touching, without the physical doctor, without the physical utensils, without the hospitals, everything?
I guess, so my wife is a psychiatrist.
Okay.
So although she has medical knowledge, she basically works in,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
that actual field. But her heart is very much like. So I'll give you a really good example, because
Okay.
I physically, my body healed in a way that didn't require doctors. So I'll tell you what happened with me, and this may well answer your question in a way, because she went to a conference in Alabama, so all the way from here, all the way to Alabama, because she knew that she wanted to be at this conference, and it was a spiritual conference um, in a church, but it was a very mystical conference, and she came back with this book called The Healing Codes. And what the healing codes is, I don't know if you've come across it, but basically the idea is that it can heal a specific issue in your life. And I thought, okay, this sounds amazing. And I started doing the healing codes, and I was doing probably 3 codes a day for me and other people within my family. And I did see stuff happen there, but I probably don't have I'm not able to share that at this point in time without consent. But one of the things that happened for me was that I did not realize that I had a thyroid problem. So, because I'd never been tested for it, as I did the healing codes, I dropped around 4 stones, which I believe is over 20 kilos. And literally, as I was releasing, so one of the points in the healing codes is that you basically have a positioned here like this, as you're decreeing a truth over particular parts of your body. I can't remember what they all are now. But as I did that, my thyroid just got better and better and better. And I didn't even know there's a problem until I then tested it, and it was just slightly out. So I thought, oh, okay, all this time my thyroid had been very out. As I tackled that, it was slightly out. And then my kinesiologist helped me to understand which supplements to take in order to make sure that I was looking after my thyroid. So just dietary changes. I cut out caffeine and things like that. So looking at things like this, my wife is thinking, well, if we've got everything that we need to heal the body inside, like we're like a walking pharmacy, as one of my friends says, then why do we want to be dependent on drugs? Now, obviously, I'm not against medication. I'm not, by no means. If you need medication, you take it, right? Because healing is a journey. But my wife's looking at this going, long term, I would love to be a holistic healer of, health, so that, like for example, with my thyroid, you would use trauma release to do that, and then top it up with, say, when I say supplements, like I take supplements, but when I say supplements, I mean just like high strength vitamins and things like that. And nutritional changes. So the doctor part of her is very much like, I'm going to do what's needed for my patients, but her heart is very much like, I want to be able to heal people without the need of medication. Um, so that's where she's kind of at. But I get why people would be dependent or feel like that's the only way, because this healing journey yes, it can be a long one, and at times, when you're in, if you're knocked out, if you've had a bad accident or something, or you're about to go in intensive care, what keeps you sustained is obviously what they give you in hospital, right? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think there's a need for both at different times.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's a need for both.
Sure, yeah.
It's it's amazing to me how many people will be let down by a religion and become atheist. It's amazing how many people will have an issue at the hospital and then go the complete opposite way and only go on to healers. And you're losing one identity to pick up another. It's always a combination of both. And I always ask that question about doctors and others who are skeptical, because it's not about letting go of doctors, letting go of the hospital, and finding some random guy or girl that does energy healings. I would love to see, and it's happening more and more the more I'm listening to it, the more I'm finding out, A lot of people still don't talk about it in public, but healers and doctors are combining. They're working together. It's not a
Oh,
last ditch effort.
absolutely.
It's a combination of they still need some physical ailments they need fixed. We do need to do surgery, and the healing is going to
Yeah.
help them recover quickly. So I love the combination of the two.
And I think what you said, just to kind of know what you said, Charlie, is that I think a lot of people, like you say, go off and pick another identity. But I think the issue is that whatever you do, it should come out of an encounter rather than come out of bitterness. So it's like, you know, when you walk in the faith, it should be because you've had an encounter. Otherwise, it becomes a religious head knowledge, right? I'm picking up loads of things. And so it's the same thing when people walk away and go, I'm an atheist now or whatever. It's coming from a place of bitterness, a place of hurt, which inevitably leads you to more hurt. I think it's important to, whatever you do, to do it out of a place of encounter rather than a place of hurt.
Yes. Yeah, and
For
you know
sure.
one of the most interesting shifts in identities that people are blind to are the ones who say I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. So they leave the religion behind, they leave the suit and tie behind, and they completely upend their life, and they're wearing loose fitting white clothing and mala beads, and they start talking in a softer tone. No, see, what I like about you, what I like about most who I'm interviewing is they're a combination. You don't look like some tree hugging hippie that
Thank you.
is doing mushrooms every other week and doing an ayahuasca journey every month and only talks about Mother Iowa and hates capitalism and hates business and everything
Oh,
else.
for
Right?
sure. I
It's
hear
it's
you.
the it's the individuals that are always trying to tear something down, the old system down, but yet they're going to the grocery store, they're going to Home Depot, they're driving their car, they're going to get oil, they're going to get gas. It's
Yeah.
just a combination of both. And if people started to understand that that fine balance, I think it'd be a lot better place.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that the issue is people, I think this is what I mean by finding religion. So when you find religion, you pick up another veil and you put it over yourself. So when I became a Christian, I was like, oh great, I found a new identity.
Mm-hmm.
I found a new veil. I put this now Christian veil over myself. But when you find identity, your spiritual identity, that it has to be that the veil comes off rather than you putting another veil on. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like whatever veil you had on in the first place has to be torn off. So you can actually be you. Like you say, I don't need to be some sort of tree hugger on mushrooms, to try and be like a spiritual person. Instead, I can just sit here and I can open my heart to God. For me, like I say, I believe in God. So for me, I open my heart to God, and I can, engage with Him, engage my heart with Him in a completely normal capacity. Because how else are you going to live your actual life and live your purpose and have people in your life and do your job and all of those things, right? So
Yeah, that's well said. The number one thing, and this is from a very selfish standpoint, the Akashic Records, my teacher, people I've worked with, people who have just known me and have the ability to look inside me,
sure,
have always said that my heart is blocked. Um,
yeah,
and it's like I told you on our phone call, I'm the first person to cry when I see a homeless person or I see a commercial with puppies in it. And it's to me, it's vulnerability. It's out in public. It's in front of people. It's in front of men. It's in front of women. It's in front of families, strangers. I always thought my heart was open, but I've heard it enough times to understand that these people aren't lying to me. They're random people who have my best interest at heart. How is it best? Because you talk about it. I think everyone I've interviewed talks about it. It's not a brain thing. It's not an emotional thing. It is truly like everyone is coming back to the heart. How do you go about healing the heart, especially when you feel like you have an open heart, when you feel like you have that love, you have vulnerability.
I mean,
What is missing for most people when they say their heart's blocked?
I think there's like a two-way flow. Just please excuse my throat.
No
It's
worries.
been a little bit funny for a couple of days, but I think it's a two-way flow. So, for example, you cry at certain things, right? And if you see something that touches you emotionally, you can feel the emotion of that. But then what might be a struggle is for you. So it's almost like you can emanate love out, but the struggle is the emanating love back in again. And it's a struggle I had. So you can, you can feel love towards an animal, but if somebody, as an example, if somebody comes to love on you, it can be a little bit like, I don't know what to do with that. I feel numb and I have no grid for that. So I think the thing is, I think it's the twofold process that some people will say, you just need to rely on the love of God or whatever. But what I would say is that when my wife came along, and and then when we were close, it was before we were married. So when I first met her, there was this level of absolute love that emanated from her towards me for who I was as a person, that started to heal various areas of my life where I believed lies about myself. When you mix, so being loved is one obviously huge thing, because it makes up for childhood lacks of love, which a lot of us have faced. And I think those things then start to heal the childhood wounds. But then that mixed with, say, things that I did with like the healing codes and the kinesiology, when you put those into a mixture together, what you've got is this kind of explosion going off inside of you, where it's almost like you're in a mine, and you're blasting things out. Because ultimately, I think the thing is, it's how do I get rid of the lie that says I'm not worthy? How do I get rid of the lie that says I'm not loved, even if I'm not resonating with the fact that it's a lie right now? How do I get rid of the fact that says I'm not going to feel anything, or things are never going to go well for me? And like, do we all struggle with that? Yeah, even after I'm still on that journey of healing. But what I would say is, I think it's a process. Like for me, kinesiology has worked with a mixture of, say, the healing codes, but also being loved in a way that I've not felt loved before. Like, I'm me and my brother. He raised me. We're so close. It's just like a different kind of love, right? When somebody comes along, um, you know, when, like, for example, my wife's love is going to be different, and it was just another layer of healing for me. So in some ways, my brother healed me in ways as he raised me, and he showed me that I was worth sticking around for, that I was worth things. But then she brought other ways of healing my heart, and then the things that needed to come out through, that were really programmed deep and ingrained within me and my belief system, I would say kinesiology and things like the healing codes and affirmations that really go against the grain. So people that wake up and feel like their life isn't worth anything. I've been there so many times, and it's like, well, actually, are we going to paint a different narrative when we wake up? And I'm going to speak, actually, my life is amazing. I've started to do that. My life is amazing. I'm strong. There is so much hope for my life. And I think just that video that plays in our subconscious, when that changes narrative, those blocks, I think, start to get removed. So I couldn't feel a love back towards God, and a gratitude for a lot of my life. And I realized that I've been shut down since my childhood. So as I start to heal those wounds, that love can now flow. And my relationship with the Lord is a lot better than it was ever before that. So sorry, that's a kind of a longer way around, but that's my take on it.
No, that's this format. So we want the long-winded formats, right?
Sure, cool.
Um, I remember reading. Have you ever read any of Greg Braden's book?
I haven't, no. I'll make a note.
I think it's called The God Code. Uh, he was showing and these are experiments that have been done, not by him, by others, where they take a piece of DNA and put
Okay.
it in a box, and then they take it 300, 3,000, how they take it halfway across the world, and whatever they did to the piece of DNA here in Utah, it
Yeah.
simultaneously if it was in the UK where you're at, whatever they did to the one in Utah would happen to the one in the UK. It
Right.
wasn't the speed of light. There was no hesitation. There was no time lapse. It was immediate, right? So it showed quantum entanglement. It showed physically to scientists, to skeptics, to people who think all of this stuff is bullshit, that it's all one, it's all connected, right? And then we just had a hurricane go through Florida, and there were some people asking for people to talk about or to pray or to put their heart towards lessening the impact of that hurricane. The healings where people, kinesiology, they're doing it over Zoom. The healings that I've worked with are over Zoom, right?
Sure.
We're so conditioned to believe that we need the physical healings, we need a doctor, we need someone to touch us, we need surgery.
Yeah.
You start, if you have the ability to see all of those different examples, how it's connected, how you can have your thoughts instead of saying I'm not loved, I'm my life is beautiful, there's so many people talking about it,
Yeah.
and the way they deliver it sometimes is kind of hippie. So a lot of people will push it aside, think it's bullshit. But you just start piecing the dots together. Every
Mhm.
single thought, every single emotion, every single word, every single thing we do never dies. And it just
Right.
creates a collection of who we are right now. Um,
Yeah.
and and I don't say that from a way aside of somebody saying I just started talking to myself better. I'm talking from how easy it is, like a death by a thousand cuts, how easy it is to let those negative thoughts slip in, to let those negative
Yeah.
words slip in, to fight over stupid things, to do things you're not supposed to do. And over months and years, it turns into an absolute hell on earth. Everything is connected. So yeah, that when you talk about that, it's something that I'm really working on. I'm working on the heart, working on the thoughts, working on the things I say, the energy I put towards people. Um, and it's not immediate. Sometimes it can't be seen for quite some time.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will give up on it.
I
But yeah, I
bet.
need I need to be much better at that.
And it's like using the unique things, isn't it? So, for example, I'm a gifts person. If somebody, like, some people, if you give them a gift, it doesn't really mean anything. If somebody gives me a gift, it really means so much to me, and I treasure things that people have given me. So some of the things I'll do, like, um, often when I'm thinking about my wife, thinking about some of the stuff she does for me, or some of the things that she's done, because it's all about the heart, right? And where what someone's done with the heart, whether it's an incredible birthday present or just something like, there was a particular watch I'd wanted for a long time, and she bought me that as a part of our wedding present. And I cherish that stuff. But it's like those things, you can use those things really to help just really heal those wounds inside, like, just like, because it helps you to see how valued you are and helps you to see how loved you are. And I know some people will disagree and say, you can't use external things, but for me, I just think I'm like, ah, when I think about some of the stuff, I've been given or whatever, it just reminds me, oh my gosh, like, I didn't have much when I was a kid. We didn't have a lot of money. And so when I am blessed like that, I just feel touched. And it's like you say, there's things that you can do to heal those inner, like, to actually heal ourselves. We don't need somebody necessarily to come along and go, do this, do that, do the other, but actually simple things to love yourself, simple things to heal yourself.
Yes, and the last part of my book talks about that, because again, when we talk about someone being let down by religion and becoming an atheist, we take that as an example. Or maybe the Republicans over here in the U.S. are not who they thought they were, and now I become a Democrat.
Yeah,
We look
for
at those
sure.
examples as one thing, and that we don't think they translate or relate to the rest of our lives. But those examples embody everything on this planet. So if your soul came down here and it was meant to find that relationship it's always wanted, that's what that individual should do. If there is external things that make that person feel validated, great. If
Yeah.
If money is what this individual wants because of a sense of safety and security is what their soul needs to heal, great. There are far too many people that are doing podcasts and talking about the path to happiness, and they always put in parentheses, it's not money.
Yeah.
No, 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 no. It may be for some. There are different
Yeah.
levels of consciousness. There are different levels of souls. There are different things we came down to experience. And if we don't experience that, we're going to fill a hole. It's not always going to be God. It's not always going to be Jesus. It's not always going to be what everyone thinks it is. That was that for them. And we've got too many people talking about that, and they should. But there are quite a few individuals who are going to fill that hole in this incarnation with something external, something relationship. And I just don't, I like to talk about that stuff because a lot of people are going to go searching for things that will not fulfill them like they fulfilled the person they read the book about or saw on a podcast or saw on a TV show. They need to find what's going to fulfill them in this life.
And you look at, I mean, I'm just targeting one thing you said because I love it, money. And it's like, usually the problem that you've got a lot of the time is you've got somebody trying to fight, say, poverty with a poverty mindset, and poverty cannot break poverty, right? So it's like a lot of this whole money thing, money can't make you happy, money is not good, money's the root of all evil, blah, 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 because it's misunderstood. And it's complete nonsense. Like,
Mhm.
you know, if so, do I desire to be wealthy, and am I going to be wealthy? Yeah, absolutely. Why? Because what does it take to bring change? What does it take to bring transformation? It takes money, right? Like, a couple of my friends, they run a charity called Love the One in India, and they provide free. They're doctors who move from the UK to India, Odisha, and they provide free childcare to free healthcare and schooling for children in slums. Okay, so on the one hand, you've got people going, "Oh, money can't, money doesn't make you happy." Well, actually, I have a good job, and that enables me to sponsor children from them. That makes me happy. Like,
Mhm.
enjoying my finances, like enjoying, being able to take my wife out for a meal, or vice versa, or being able to go for a really beautiful holiday, for example. That makes me happy. So I completely am. I'm not in that camp at all. What I
Mhm.
would say is that the people who always meditate on a lack mentality. So I guess what I mean by that is that you get people, I guess, who live from abundance, and you get people who live from lack. So the people who live from lack, I believe they'll never be happy with whatever they get. So they could have hundreds of thousands in the bank, millions in the bank, whatever, but because their mindset is so rooted in lack, nothing makes them happy because they always lack good relationships, good finances, good things in their home, whatever it is. So I think, like, for example, the Bible talks about how you can't serve two masters, God and money. And this is a big thing that the church talks about, because they'll go like, and you can't serve money if you want to serve God, so therefore you shouldn't have money. It's like, that's totally the opposite of what the verse is saying. Because the person that chases money is the person that lacks the money in the first place, and therefore they're serving the money. The person that has the money doesn't need to serve the money because they're not having to chase the money. They govern over the money. So I just think that touching on that money part is such a big thing of faith and understanding, because people just don't seem to understand. And I've had great people in my life that have helped me to see the importance of wealth, because actually Elon Musk, for example, only has to open his mouth and the share prices move and the markets move, and the tech market can move. Why? Because of his positioning. Why? It's because he ultimately has an absolute abundance of wealth, and therefore people look at that and understand. So I think, actually, if you want to have, I'm not saying this to have a voice in terms of a spiritual voice, but people do look at those with finance, who understand finance, to see what they're doing. And you look at the things that people, what they do with their money, and the incredible things like, I believe it's Neuralink, and things like that, which can help people transform people's lives. Well, to somebody, that money's going to be equate to happiness, when they can do things that they couldn't do before. So sorry, that was again probably a bit of a maybe even some of a rant, but I've seen so much of this poverty stuff included in my own this kind of external family life, not my immediate family, but it really gets to me because I'm like, no, we should absolutely have an abundance. It's based on the lie that Jesus, or Yeshua, as I call him, is poor, which is what is commonly believed. But I think, yes, if you've got a lack mentality, money's never going to solve it. But actually, to say that you can't be happy as a result of having abundant wealth, I completely disagree, because you can do all of the things that you enjoy. If I don't have to work tomorrow because I've got such an abundance of finance, I can spend so much of my time engaging spiritually and doing all the things that just all the things that I would enjoy.
Jesus versus Yeshua. Talk to me about that, because I hear more and more people talk about it like you do. So
Yeah.
whatever that question means to you, answer it however you will.
Yeah, so I mean, I called him Jesus for years and years, and some people call the Father Jehovah, and then obviously there's the Holy Spirit as the Trinity. But when I started to look at the Hebrew, because actually the most important thing with our faith is, if we were to look at the Hebrew roots of what is actually being taught in the Bible, we'd see something completely different. So, the Bible actually is, in from a Hebrew perspective, will teach us that we came from heaven and various different things. But if you look at, so his name in the Hebrew alphabet, there is no letter J, and his name would be in Hebraic Yeshua. But obviously I I'm not so, I can't quite remember where the Jesus came in, but I believe they took two names and combined them and came out with Jesus. So I'm not saying it's wrong, but when I had the encounter of the fact that his name was really Yeshua, I was like, okay, that's what I want to call him. And it took me some time to adjust, but that's all it is. It was just understanding his name from a Hebraic perspective.
What is it that most mainstream religions and the Bible get wrong about that individual?
Okay, so John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him will not perish but live forever." I'm saying this as I own it in my heart. I'm not reading that from a particular translation. Well, here's the thing, right? A spirit cannot perish. So Christians really miss the entire point of why Yeshua actually came to the earth. And most Christians are basically walking around telling people, you have to be saved so that you can die and go to heaven again. But the Bible's quite clear that Yeshua destroyed death, and it says whoever believes in him will not die but live forever. Christians have the perspective that means you die a physical death, but you won't die a spiritual death. It didn't say that, but that is what is commonly regarded. But a spirit doesn't perish. It's not a perishable item. But flesh can decay and is a perishable item. So I completely believe, wholeheartedly believe, and there are a number of people that believe this. And if you scientifically look at how your body can regenerate and all of those things, your cell can regenerate, your skin can regenerate, and all of those things. I believe that what Yeshua's death was not about you escaping hell, like is commonly taught by the street preachers on the soapbox. It's actually the fact that you will have the ability, through engaging and intethering with him, to live forever and never die, which I get will sound crazy to a majority or 99% of people that I would say that to. But I mean, then you look into the outside world and see people outside of Christianity seem to get it, and people sitting there thinking about immortality and regeneration, how your body can regenerate itself and how you can anti-age and all of those things. So I think that's the number one thing. people think that he was poor, and therefore you should be poor, but he's not poor, because back in those days, people used to honor their rabbis with what we would call trades, or I believe the actual name for it is teruma. And so they would honor their rabbi with giving. And then, the rabbi would do, whatever he does. But it's like there was this other thing around that. I think this is where the poverty spirit really hones in on Christians. So you should be poor and you should die to go to heaven. But the Bible's really clear that you came from heaven in the first place. The Bible also talks about how God knew you in the womb. He knew you before you were, before you were created, before you were put together in the womb. So it's like, well, something has to budge here, because it's quite crazy if I came from heaven to the earth to be saved, so I could go to heaven, the place where I've just come from, and escape hell. And I'm like, this whole fake gospel really got me. I was like, I used to be in logistics, so I had to do what was logical. And there is no logic to this. So I believe so many Christians, this is where they've got it wrong. It's like salvation, as the Bible talks about it, is not your ticket into heaven. Salvation is about all of your inheritance that you can access on the earth. So that's kind of they're two of the things that I think the church gets really wrong, because I believe the whole thing was about Yeshua destroying death and decay, because initially the world was never created to have death and decay. So I hope that kind of answers the question.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect, right? And different guests, different things we talk about, different answers, different ideas, but it all revolves around the same thing, and basically everyone's saying the same thing. That was always an interesting thing to me, because you listen to people who have, the tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions, if they're statistically correct, about near-death experiences.
Yeah.
It seems like we left heaven to come here. I don't understand why. Yeah, that's an interesting one to me, right? Because they talk about feeling incredible amounts of love and bliss. It feels more real. It feels like home. If you listen to Darius Wright and people who do controlled out-of-body experiences,
Yeah.
they talk about the soul being more physical than this.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is what we consider
So
physical.
heaven is more real than the earth that's surrounding. Yeah. The
Yep,
colours are
and
more
that's
vibrant.
if
Yeah.
if that doesn't show you how our mind has been conditioned and how the human earthly constructs create such a real understanding, real as
Yeah.
in what we think is real, to say that the spiritual side of things is more physical than our physical body, that will upend a lot of people's worlds. So I've
Oh.
always wondered, we talk about enlightenment and awakening, and I'm thinking to myself, when I spent my decade with my teacher, thinking that enlightenment was it, and it was going to solve everything, and it was the end all be all. And then I started thinking, we basically had that and more, and we chose to come here
Yeah.
and get our teeth kicked in. We had the ability to have everything we wanted, and things were
Yeah.
very easy in a very less dense dimension, and we came here. So, interesting.
It's a topic I ponder all the time. I mean, my personal belief is that we came here to do what Adam initially came here to do, which was to govern over the earth, to be a government over the earth. And I believe that we came here to do that. And also, I believe that the more people that believe in what the blood of Yeshua actually did, defeating death, creating a pathway to immortality, I believe together that creates a consciousness of decay, completely, not anti-decay, anti-aging, people absolutely finding that that their bodies are made completely new again and all this. And so I believe that we came here for a specific reason. with regards to kinesiology. I believe it's to also that we came here to release the trapped energies that get passed on through the bloodline. So when I look at it, so often in my week, at some point or another, I will have said, calm down. You came from heaven for a purpose. This work issue is not that serious. Relax. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's my way of almost reminding myself, why am I here again? What am I here for? And it's very much that to bring my high frequency to the earth, to engage with my immortality on the earth, and to increase love on the earth. I think that's what it is. And so that's one quite, another reason I'm grateful to have had this healing time, because I'm not going to be able to emanate love until I've healed enough that, and experiencing it myself, that I can then give it out in a pure way. It's like people think that humble people are people that think nothing of themselves. Actually, a humble person is a person who knows exactly who he is, right? Exactly how powerful he is, exactly how amazing he is. And that person then has nothing to prove anymore. And that's exactly what I'm going for, and the kind of person I desire to be.
That's one thing I've heard recently. Everyone talks about love. Oh, it's all about love, and it's the highest frequency. Well, what they've actually shown is the highest level, the highest frequency on this physical plane is authenticity.
Huh, interesting. Okay.
So if that
Yeah, that makes sense.
authenticity, you know what I'm saying? If that authenticity means kind of being pushy or maybe being an asshole to get something done that actually is part of the larger plan that makes things advance, but authenticity, which because I've had my teacher, I've had numerous teachers, I've talked to thousands of people, and I had a great teacher by the name of Adi Ashanti, and someone was talking about love, and he said, and he's the kindest, gentlest, probably one of the most enlightened beings of our time. He's still alive,
Sure.
and she's talking about love, and he's like, yeah, it's all about love. How's that working out for you? Right? So he wasn't saying it wasn't about love. He was just saying there was a combination. And then I
I'm
heard
with you.
someone talk about authenticity. And I think that's part of my issue. When I'm clicking, when I'm 100% authentic, I'm a more passionate, people would say more aggressive person when it comes to these topics. But when I'm that way, people are open to it. I'm I can say things that other people would think is insulting, and it's not insulting. It's a way of getting straight to the core of what they need to hear. That's my authentic self. When I'm not my authentic self, I doubt myself. I second guess what I say. I don't engage with humans, and I think part of the the Akashic records call. I've always said I'm a bridge to help others cross that river to whatever it
Yeah,
is
sure.
spiritually. That bridge is broken when I'm inauthentic, when I'm fearful, when I'm doubtful. I don't engage. There's a lot of things I don't
Yeah.
engage, and I'm not an open channel to say what needs to be said to that individual. So they always say now, and I love that authenticity is the highest
Because
level of frequency in the physical form.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? I think that's it. What you said there is the frequency part, which is so before you say anything, you're already sensing that person's frequency, aren't you? Are they genuine? Are they not? Right? And so a religious person will often be sat there telling you the answers to your, to your problems. Oh, do this or do that, or just believe, or, all those kind of answers. Just have faith. Whatever it is, it's like there's all these answers that come out, and they're not coming from a place of authentically like knowing I've walked through this and you're going to get this. Otherwise, they would carry a different frequency. Often it's head knowledge, and it's just a thing that you get told, and as soon as you get told, you brush it off because it's like it doesn't resonate. Whereas when somebody tells you from a really authentic place where when they've experienced something similar to you, and how they just know that something's going to change for you because they're seeing it, because they're authentically speaking it out of a place of inner stillness. The power is a whole world apart, right? And I think that is so much of it. So I completely get that, because head knowledge, and when someone talks from head knowledge, and I'm guilty of doing this. When you're a Christian, the first thing you're taught is you've got to be really happy now because Jesus died for your sins. Until you actually realize the reason behind his death properly, you're trying to make yourself feel grateful all the time. And even if you don't, and then you've got to tell people, hey, I'm really happy, you know, that inside there's all this turmoil kicking off. And actually now I can authentically say, I am the happiest I've ever been in my life. As I deal with my generational trauma, I feel pain as it comes out, but I can authentically say, I'm at the best place I've ever been at, even if I'm dealing with hard things at the same time. I have my rants, I have my vents. I tell my wife exactly how I feel on a day when I'm releasing some of these traumas, and you just feel like, everything's falling apart. But the point is that I don't have to lie about how I feel. Whereas I think you're so afraid in religion of giving God a bad rap, or something that that's where I think this religious spirit is what actually brings the most inauthenticity into people's lives and out their mouths, because it says you must say that things are going well for you even if they're not, and you must give this person advice, tell them, pray to God, and you're going to be fine, or whatever it is, rather than take the guy out for a beer and calm him down, have a conversation, chill,
Yes.
And I'm not saying there's not a place for prayer and engaging in that stuff with people, but authenticity, I think, allows us to be the best, highest solution for a person. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
From another selfish note, would you mind doing what we did a couple days ago?
Not at
Could
all.
we could we show the world what you do when you're helping people, praying for them, healing, whatever?
Absolutely. Like my number one, I'm not going to say goal, but if you could say to me, what would be a number one thing? Although I've loved having this conversation with you, you're awesome. I hope we can chat again. Although I've loved having this conversation, my number one thing, if someone said to me, what would be the best thing that could happen as a result of this time, it would be that people would feel love from God, or people call him divine, the higher being, a divine higher being, or universe, whatever. That would be my absolute, the thing that I would want the most, is people would experience and feel that. So I could, if it's okay with you, and I won't do something long, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to pray for you, and also at the same time for anyone that's watching this video. Would that be okay?
Please. Yeah,
Yeah.
please. Thank you.
Awesome. Right. Okay. So Yahweh, Yeshua, and Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, I thank you for your love for each one of these people that are going to be listening to this podcast. And also, I want to thank you for the amazing heart that Charlie has and what he's trying to do here, the bridge that he is for people. And my prayer right now, as I just release my spirit over these guys, I ask that you would completely overshadow them with your love, that you would overshadow them with just your friendly, beautiful, kind, calm nature, and that people would get to see, that haven't maybe remembered you from before they came, the incredible love that you have. So I want to ask right now for your electric, beautiful energy to flow through Charlie, through his amazing heart, clearing out some of those wounds with affirmations. Like, I'm really feeling for you, Charlie, as I do this, that you're going to start to get sent, and you can tell me if this happens for you. This is just my sense, that you're going to start to get new sentences and new affirmations and new words that actually sum up who you truly are, which take away from the lies that have been, planted from whenever they came in through the years. So I really believe that there's going to be a new way that your inner self speaks to yourself and believes who you really are. And I also just ask for an overwhelming presence, an overwhelming love to flow over Charlie, over each person here, and that each person would more than anything know how loved they are and just how precious they are. And I also want to just ask, although I don't necessarily do this so much anymore, for physical healing manifestations to occur, for sicknesses to just go, because they're only low frequencies. So I ask Yahweh, is you're the highest frequency that these sicknesses, as people would hear this, that the sicknesses will just disintegrate, that there would be bone realignment, there'd be all sorts of regeneration in the body, and most importantly, heart healing that takes place. But I speak right now just a complete shalom over every person that hears this. And I can feel the energy of Yahweh going through my body right now. So I just want to, again, release that out to whoever would be here. Mm. And I also just want to ask about this thing of reprogramming our minds to tell a different story. And I know this has been a big thing for me, but I ask that everyone here that listens to this, that their minds would be reprogrammed to tell the true story of how loved they are, the true story of how embraced they are, the true story of their health, the true story of how they're not abandoned, but are held deeply in the heart. And particularly, I feel like particularly traumas around that happened within the womb, when things were spoken that were wrong and the waters carried the records into the child, and things that happened since birth maybe that were that were that the baby took on to mean something for their life which is false. I just want to ask the Lord to break that completely off. And the truth, the Bible says the truth will set you free. You want to know the truth will set you free. And so I want to claim for each person here the truth. How are you feeling, Charlie? Sorry, it's like I took you out of another dimension.
No, feels good. Feels good,
Yeah,
man.
I hope that was okay. That was really it. What I long to see is people just feeling the love of, as I say, for me it's God, but people just know how loved and embraced they are.
Yeah, it's I think my most difficult thing with this physical existence is feeling that love now, knowing, having that head knowledge, experiencing what you just did. But for me, it's like swimming in a pool of red dye and trying not to be red. This world this world can
That's a great one, yeah.
this world is continuously pulling you away from that love,
Yeah,
with marketing,
yeah.
with people, with fears and worries and concerns and conditioning. And I've been around this stuff for so long, and I've had such powerful teachers, and I've been around healers who have done amazing things, and I'm still blown away by how hard it is sometimes to function in this dense reality. It really is.
I think as well, though, Charlie, it might be that, you're not, when you're releasing those things, it might not just be for you, as in the sense
Yeah.
that it's those maybe, generational, intergenerational traumas and
Oh
things.
yeah.
It can
Yeah.
definitely feel harder. People that have, great grandma. So I remember when we did a session once, my kinesiologist released a trauma that was like 4 or 5 generations deep. And it was like, wow, I've been carrying something that
Hmm.
deep. And if it's gone through those generations, man, you're really feeling it. Like, although you might not be consciously feeling it, your body's vibrating at that still. So I think maybe there's the most helpful way that if it's okay for me to just share this last bit, the most helpful way of that I've heard it put is like layers of the onion. So some people like have a layer of, the last layer of the onion that needs to come off, and then as they get healed, it's like that comes off and boom, it's done. And then others, it's like a layer, and then oh wait, there's another layer, and then people get discouraged because they're like, hold on, I thought I was better from that, and it's like no, it's okay, it's another layer. I've been that person that's got discouraged, and then there's like another layer, and then eventually one day you wake up and you realize that the issue doesn't bother you anymore, or you can feel in a different way, and that's certainly how I've experienced it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I've said many times, I'd love to sit down with my soul and find out directly what he signed up for,
Yeah,
because sometimes I want to tell it to go fuck itself. Right. And I understand the generational stuff. So it reminds me on tough days that I may not even be releasing just for me and just for my generation. I may be more open and
100%.
more sensitive to an incredible amount of people, maybe just humanity, the collective consciousness. And, my number one thing was asking for clarity and truth. And I was the one who built the construct, the conditioning, and the expectation of what truth was going to do for me. And
Yeah,
that has not been the case. That has
I
not
mean
been the
that's
case for me.
unusual that you're saying this, that a lot of people refuse to take any sort of responsibility of anything they've built. It's usually a case of this was done to me, that was done to me, or the other was done to me. But there's a level of where I look back and go, do you know what? I built my way of thinking. I agreed with these lies. I agreed with things that I was told. I'm not, I ended up getting a degree in things at university, but I'm not theoretically, I wouldn't consider myself to be a theoretically clever person. So every time the teachers told me you're going to fail, like school said you're going to fail, you're never going to get into college, and then college said you're going to fail and never get into university. And the university was like, I'm not sure there's hope. And then I got my degree anyway. But each stage of the way, what stuck with me is you're not that clever, you're not that bright. Um, so yeah, I totally hear you. And it's like things get, but I've built that in myself. So now the beauty of it is I have the ability to then create something. Because the way I'm looking at this is going, if I created this much trauma from believing the lies, how much amazing stuff can I build from telling myself the truth,
Yep.
right? Like if I can feel this bad from these silly lies that I didn't even want to engage with, what about if I manage to engage with the truth in such a way? What is that going to do for my life? How's that going to blow up my consciousness and my joy levels? So
Yep.
that's what I'm really wanting to do. Do I get it right every day? I just want to be crystal clear. No, for absolute transparency, absolutely not. I don't get it clear. Do I still end up saying negative things of myself? Yes, but I'm learning. I went from somebody who would speak negative every day, to really drilling down on not doing that, to repeatedly tell myself that different story. But I love what you said is all that you took responsibility. It's like you program yourself in a certain way to think, but it's like learning. Okay, well, I went through some of those things. What was the reasoning behind it? What was the purpose behind some of the things I went through? Um, and how has it got me to where I am today? Like when I left the church system, it was one of the most painful things I ever experienced because a lot of people didn't want to, a lot of people didn't believe in what we were doing because you stay with the crowd, right? And it's very much like this is the place where everyone's at, so I'm going to stay here. And when a few of us left, me, my wife, and our best friend, it was a very traumatic time. Everyone left us, really, and bar a few people. But I look at it and go, I had to experience that, because now it was worth experiencing. I realized that by experiencing it, who was truly my people, and then as a result of it, I'm in the best place I've ever been in every area of my life. And it's like taking some of those traumas and going, they really, although they were traumatic at the time, taking those events rather than going, they were traumatic at the time. Oh my gosh, if you said to me, would you go through all that pain again to be where you're at now, I would have to absolutely say yes. But in that journey, you feel like I'm never going to get there. And most people are sat in that place where they're going, are we there yet? No, we're never going to get there. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And all I can say in the most encouraging way is, when you first experience that traumatic thing, it just doesn't feel like you're ever going to get there. But then slowly, as time goes, you end up in the absolute best place that you could have ever been in as a result. So long as we take responsibility of our actions in what we did, because I think a lot of people go to blame the trauma, forgetting why they did something. Like I did that. I started to blame the trauma of leaving church rather than remembering why it is that I left it behind. It was to pursue a deeper relationship with the Lord through mystical union as opposed to religious union. Sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but it just felt important to me, because that's one of the things that comes up a lot.
No, once again, we like the long-winded answers. We like the
Good.
tangents.
Well, that's me. I'm the long-winded answer.
We like that. My inclination is to go to the last question, but
Sure.
I really I like how you answer stuff. So,
Sure.
is there anything else that intuitively comes up for you that you'd like to share before the last question?
No, I think that was everything. I just wanted to encourage people, because I know people who are listening to somebody like yourself and other people like yourself, other teachers like yourself, will have been through something or another. They're not stuck with everybody typically in a religious system. So I just wanted to say that it can be hard when you start out doing something against the grain, but you end up in the best life possible. But go ahead with your last question, Charlie. That'd be awesome.
What is truth to you?
What is truth to me? That's an amazing question. What is truth to me? I don't want to be a cliche. I don't want to say this in a cliche way when I say the Lord. But what I want to say is that the more I've experienced God, the more I've experienced truth. And I say that in the way, the truth about who I really am. So to me, he represents all that is actually true, all the truth about who, if we were to break down truth, all about the truth about who I am, the truth about the purposes of me, the purposes about the people around me, the truth about, who, like I say, who I am in terms of how loved I am, and all of those things. For me, he is the source of truth. But as I step inwards, that's when I find that truth. Because stepping outwards and listening to people, you get a version of their truth. Stepping into Christianity, I got a version of Christianity's truth. Going into the Hindu, I got a version of Hindu's truth. So I guess because of God as a spirit being, I look to him as the ultimate source of the truth that exists. And it's equally important for me to know the truth about who I am. So it's the relationship together that brings about the truth. So him being my truth, our relationship together allows me to know my truth about who I am. I hope that I hope that kind of answers your question. That's an awesome question. I wasn't expecting that.
No, that's the answers are always different. The answers are usually very simple. The answers are always beautiful, because that's the whole point of this podcast. Truth has no sides. So
Yeah, for sure.
there's a considerable amount of people who they just are coming around to the fact that Republican truth is not the same as a Democratic truth, and atheist truth is
Yeah.
not the same as a Catholic truth, and it has no sides. There is a absolute truth that births all of these relative truths, and they all
I
come from
mean,
the
as
same
I stepped
source.
outside of religion like that, sorry, I was just going to say, as I stepped
Yeah.
just on your note, as I stepped outside of religion, where before it was Christians have the truth, and if it doesn't contain the word Jesus in it, it's not real, and that kind of religious mentality, I've really learned to honor what people carry and what their truth is. Because so many people have such great wisdom that you can learn from. They might be walking in a completely different, way of life to you, but it's like honoring the truth that they walk in. So yeah, I think I'm definitely someone that was guilty of putting down someone's truth when I was sat within a religious structure, and now I'm very much like, you've got to honor whatever truth people carry, just because you don't have a grid for it yet. It's like immortality; it can blow your head to start because you've got no grid for it. But it's like you have a choice. You either shut that thing down altogether and then you lose it, or you put it on the shelf. And at some point, like a great book, you take it off the shelf and you read it and you think, I'm ready to read this now. So I think it's just important to honor those, people with great wisdom around us that are on different journeys, different paths.
We'll end there. That's beautiful. Jay, thank you for your time, man, and it blows me away how quickly. I mean, we've been doing this for an hour and 25 minutes. Like the
Wow,
conversations, yeah.
it's been amazing.
So thank you for the time. I'm glad Mike connected us. I really want to keep talking to you offline,
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
and I'll get this downloaded, recorded, and I'll let you know when it goes live. I'll get you a link to it, and sounds like you're in marketing, so you can just market it out to the world.
There you go. I'll rely on your marketing. But no, thank you so much, Charlie, for having me on. And I look forward to building a relationship with you outside of this.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jay. We'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Thank you.